I couldn't find a place to sit. The alien queen grabbed my arm and said, "Sit." The amphitheater stretched wider than any cathedral I'd ever seen. Gilded arches carved from bones of extinct leviathans supported a ceiling of shimmering crystal. From where I stood at the threshold, the seat seemed infinite, filled with alien species whose shapes defied biology textbooks back home, amphibian monarchs with gilt robes, insectoid envoys clicking in coded language, reptilian warlords armored in scales like molten iron. Their collective gaze pressed down on me like a storm. I had been warned, of course. The interstellar Concord was not a place for humans to wander lightly. Earth had only been invited to observe, not participate, and certainly not speak. My task was simple: attend quietly, record diligently, return humbly. I clutched my datapad to my chest, repeating the words over and over in my head. But I'd underestimated one thing: the seating. Every tier of the amphitheater was packed, the benches overflowing with beings larger, taller, or stranger than me. Their bodies spilled over armrests and aisles, their entourages spread ceremonial fabrics and banners across entire rows. No space remained for a lone, awkward human diplomat's assistant like me. I lingered near the edge, trying not to attract notice, shifting my weight from foot to foot as though I belonged there. And then she saw me. The alien queen. Her name, whispered with reverence across the stars, was Queen Zithra of the KLYTH Dominion. She was a towering presence even seated. Her carapace gleamed obsidian black, veined with silver light, as if starlight itself coursed beneath her armored skin. Her crown was no adornment but part of her very skull, jagged horns spiraling toward the ceiling. Her compound eyes glittered with alien intellect, unfathomable and unyielding. Even the fiercest reptilian warlords bowed when she turned her gaze upon them. And now her gaze had fixed on me. I froze. My instinct screamed at me to shrink, to vanish, to be invisible. Instead, she rose from her throne of living vines, striding forward with predatory grace. Her guards shifted uneasily, uncertain whether to intervene. The hum of voices in the amphitheater dimmed to a low murmur. She extended one clawed hand, larger than my head, and closed it gently, deliberately, around my arm. "Sit," she commanded. Her voice reverberated through my bones, a resonance more felt than heard. I swallowed hard. Where? She didn't answer with words. Instead, she pulled me forward with casual authority and led me up the steps to her dais. At her side was a broad empty platform cushioned with woven fibers that shimmered in shifting colors. She guided me to it, pressing me down until I obeyed. The crowd erupted into whispers, some scandalized, some amused, some awed. A human had been chosen by the queen herself to sit beside her. I had no idea why. The beginning, a human among giants. The session of the Interstellar Concord commenced with ceremonial chants, resonating tones that vibrated through the crystal ceiling. Delegates raised their appendages, mandibles, or tendrils in ritual synchrony. My hands trembled in my lap, datapad nearly slipping from my sweaty palms. I dared a glance at Queen Zithra. She did not chant. She did not move. She only sat, her immense form radiating authority like a gravitational pull. Every being in the chamber watched her out of the corner of their vision, gauging her silence as though it carried meaning more profound than the voices of dozens of worlds. And me, fragile misplaced human, I sat at her side, close enough to feel the faint warmth that radiated from her armored body. I kept my eyes down, praying she wouldn't notice me further. But of course, she did. "You are far from your kind," she said softly, though her words still echoed like thunder. "Why do you hover at the edges, as though unworthy of space?" I blinked, startled. My mind scrambled for the safe response. "Because, Your Majesty, I was instructed not to intrude." Her mandibles twitched in something like amusement. "And yet you intrude more by standing awkwardly than by taking your rightful seat. Curious, how your kind seeks invisibility when presence would serve better." I opened my mouth, but no words came. She turned her attention back to the chamber as though the matter was settled. It should have ended there. But it didn't. The middle, whispers of war. The Concord was never a place of harmony, despite its name. It was a battlefield of words, of alliances forged and broken under the pretense of diplomacy. That day's agenda was dire. The Vorkan swarm, a hive species devouring colonies at the galactic rim, had advanced beyond containment. Systems burned, populations vanished. A decision had to be made, war or appeasement. Delegates shouted in alien tongues, translators struggling to keep pace. Some species demanded unity and retaliation. Others counseled surrender, sacrifice of frontier worlds to save the core. The tension was palpable. And in the midst of it, Queen Zithra remained silent. I dared to glance at her again. Her posture was statuesque, but her eyes flickered between factions with a predator's calculation. She was weighing not only arguments but weaknesses. The chamber waited for her voice, even as voices thundered around us. And then, without warning, she turned to me. "What do you say, human?" The words crashed over me like a tidal wave. Every head, every eye, every sensor in the amphitheater shifted toward me. I felt naked, exposed, a speck under the gaze of giants. My throat went dry. "Me?" I croaked. "Yes," she said, and the command in her voice was undeniable. Your species is young, untested, yet bold enough to walk among us. Speak. I wanted to melt into the floor. I was not a diplomat, not a leader, not even a senior envoy. I was an assistant, a recorder. But her eyes bored into me, and something inside me snapped. I heard my own voice before I realized I was speaking. War will cost lives. Appeasement will cost futures. If you trade worlds to the Vorkan swarm, you'll teach them hunger works. If you fight, at least you'll teach them fear. The chamber went utterly silent. For a heartbeat, I thought I doomed myself, humiliated Earth, brought disaster to humanity's fragile relationship with the stars. Then Queen Zithra's mandibles curved upward in a smile both terrifying and regal. You hear the truth from the small one, she declared, her voice shaking the amphitheater. Fear is the only language the Vulcan will understand. I will not yield my dominion to devourers. Nor should any of you. And just like that, the tide shifted. Species who wavered before now roared in support of resistance. Those who sought appeasement faltered under the Queen's gaze. The motion passed, the Concord would unite in war. And it had been my words, my accidental trembling words, that had lit the spark. The unraveling. From that moment on, I was no longer invisible. Everywhere I went in the days that followed, alien envoys whispered as I passed. Some called me the Queen's pet, others the human voice. My datapad overflowed with unsolicited requests for meetings, offers, bribes. But it was Queen Zithra who unsettled me most. She summoned me often, not as servant but as something else. She asked about Earth, about humanity's struggles and history. She listened, truly listened, to my halting stories of wars and reconciliations, of revolutions and dreams. You are fragile, she said once, almost gently. Yet you burn with stubborn fire. I see why the swarm will not devour you easily. I should have felt honored. Instead, I felt trapped in currents far greater than myself. What had begun as an accident, failing to find a seat, had spiraled into history. And then came the revelation. One night, when the chamber was empty, I overheard her speaking to her inner council. The human was no accident, she said. I chose him. The Concord doubts my motives, fears my dominion grows too strong. By lifting the smallest voice among them, I remind them that power is not measured by size or age. And I remind them all that I alone decide whose voice matters. I stood frozen in the shadows, heart pounding. She hadn't chosen me because she saw something in me. She'd chosen me because I was weak, because my insignificance magnified her power. I was a symbol, a tool. And yet, she'd also listened. She'd respected my words when others would have dismissed them. Both truths existed at once, tangled and inescapable. The ending, a seat that couldn't be refused. The War Council convened weeks later. Plans were drawn, fleets pledged, strategies debated. I sat once again beside Queen Zithra, no longer trembling but still uncertain. When the council adjourned, she leaned close, her voice low enough that only I heard. You resent me, she said. It wasn't a question. My throat tightened. I don't know what I am to you. Her compound eyes glittered. You are what I made you. A voice amplified by my choice. You may see chains in that. Or you may see wings. The choice is yours. I searched her alien face, trying to decipher sincerity from manipulation. Perhaps both lived in her equally. Perhaps that was the truth of power, that it used and uplifted in the same breath. When the session ended, I rose to leave. The benches were once again overflowing with beings vaster and grander than me. For a moment, I hesitated, uncertain where to go. And then I felt her clawed hand close around my arm once more. Sit, she commanded. This time, I did not obey out of fear. I obeyed because I understood. Because sometimes a place isn't found, it's claimed. Even if claimed by someone else's will. The amphitheater fell into ritual silence as the War Council's decisions were sealed. And there I sat, a human among giants, beside the alien queen whose choice had bound my fate to hers. And perhaps, just perhaps, that seat, impossible, unearned, perilous, was exactly where I was meant to be.